Hello and welcome to the Left Wing Back podcast with me, Kevin Regan. In this first ever series, we bring you a show called My Time in the Geansaí. Here we look at the careers of many well-known former footballers and hurlers who soldiered with Carlow, but also taking in some of their fondest memories from the club game, as well as deep personal stories. Now, my next guest comes from Leinster Rangers. He's known as the legend, of course, down that direction, and it's Mr. James Hickey. James, of course, a former hurler and footballer with Carlow, and a man I've interviewed many times before, but the first time on the podcast. James, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kevin. Good to be here. Fair play to you for doing this.
Different times, I suppose, from the last time I was talking to you. From a media sense, we have COVID-19 going on, and I suppose it's a good time to reminisce and look back at different things that's happened down through the years. You were lucky enough to play with Carlow for football and hurling, and some fond memories, no doubt.
Oh yeah, look, I had a few great years there. Probably spent a bit more time with the hurlers than the footballers, but great memories. Played with some great players, great characters. Look back on it now with fondness.
Take us back to down in Ballymurphy and the early days, I suppose, getting involved in hurling and football. I know your father Pat is a big GA man, so yourself, Willie and Andrew, of course, no doubt, were out poking around constantly.
Yeah, had a field beside the house and had a big electric pole going through it and two wires. And I remember going out as a young lad with the boys, and I suppose the task was to who could get the ball up over the wire. I remember spending countless hours and days trying to get that ball over the wire, and then when you'd eventually do it, you'd feel like a hero. And then it was to step back a bit and go farther away from it and keep doing it. And oh God, fun memories of doing that. I suppose when we were coming through the ranks, there wasn't much success in this part of Carlow. We were, for want of a better word, I remember Anthony Daly using it one day, the whipping boys. We were definitely the whipping boys of Carlow. That time, it was intermediate hurling. It was all, at underage, it was all B's and C's. And I remember winning under 12. Now, I was only a sub on the team on the top pitch in Bagenalstown. God, that's many years ago now, but that was a B final. It was kind of our first success ever. And my father was over that team, and it kind of progressed from there. We were only reminiscing over it there the other night, myself, Gary, Edward and Frank. We have an old WhatsApp chat group, and we were just saying, my father, Carlow were after winning the All-Ireland B in 92, and my father was standing in the back and he has the suit on him. Gary said he looked like one of these Premiership managers, but it was they were fond old memories. And I suppose it kicked off from there then, and came up along the ranks. Then I suppose we got to our first under 16A final in, I'd say it was 94. Michael bet us. It was in Bagenalstown. Michael bet us for 3 or 4 points. They had a fierce good team that time. I remember Dermot Foley, the two Murphys, Dez's two young lads. Big, strong, physical team, and they beat us. And we kind of stuck with it, and 2 years later, we ended up actually winning the minor A. That was 96. And when the Rangers was formed in 88, they won the minor intermediate. They went up senior, but came straight back down. But it kind of fell off the cliff. Kind of that success was a kind of where they looked at it as instant, and it was probably a glimpse of what was to come. It didn't materialise that way. I suppose it took until 2006 or 96, to win that minor. And that team then got back to the minor final in 97, and Michael beat us by a point. I remember a great story about this. We were meeting over in the hurling field before that minor final. We were going for 2 in a row, and Andrew was working with a lad at the time anyway, and the match was on a Saturday, 3 o'clock in Carlow. And of course, Andrew anyway thought the lad that he worked for was bringing him. He was going off to do a job. Andrew was working back at the plant, and your man used to go to all the matches. Andrew thought your man was bringing him. He never showed up in the field, so we all went to Carlow anyway. Just about to go on the field, no sign of Andrew. So we played the first half. We were level at half time. So Andy arrives into the dressing room at half time anyway. The boys put him straight in. 10 minutes after half time, he was gone, red card. And so we ended up losing that one by a point. So it was a late start for him, but it was a quick ending. But we lost that by a point. But that team stayed together then as well. And I suppose we progressed to under 21 then and got to the under 21 final in 2000 against Michael, and Michael beat us. Michael was kind of the old foe, and they got the better of us after a replay. And then in 2001, we bet Nave Breed in the under 21 final, and it was that was probably the start of it. That was the big one. We reached the senior final that year. The under 21 team. Kind of that time, 2001, Ballinkillen had a super team coming, and we kind of had a good team coming too. And it was a kind of, I suppose, we were keeping our eyes kind of on them, and they were keeping their eyes on us. And Ballinkillen were starting to come. The two Welshes, the Duke, very prominent over in Ballinkillen, and God, they had a star-studded team, and we beat them in the semi-final in Bagnasstown. Jimmy McAvoy was full forward. I think he scored 3-2 or 3-3 that day, and we beat him, and we ended up beating Nave Breed in the final. And that kind of kick-started, I suppose. That year, then the goal was to get to the senior semi-final, and we got to the senior semi-final. First, kind of, the Rangers had been in the semi-final in a kind of 94. But, one day, the club made a decision, the senior squad, that the goal was to get into the semi-final. This would be progress, to get into the senior semi-final. We had won in 96 as well as winning the minor. We had won the junior. We had won the intermediate. 97 we had got back to the minor final. We went up senior. We were getting beppy. That minor team, probably 6 or 7 of them went straight into senior in 97. Edward, Gary, Frank, myself, John and Willie came kind of the next year. We kind of stuck together then between 97 and 2000, took fair beatings along the way. I remember my first senior hurling match in 97, Michael, I think it was about 4, maybe 28 to 1, 3 or 4 in Bagnasstown, and the following Saturday night playing St. Mullins, and they beating us 30 points to 3. But we stuck with it. Guess we had no choice, good group of lads, all knocking around the home. None had any intentions to travel. Kind of, our life was in Ballymurphy and the surrounding area, so stuck together. And then in 2001, as I say, when we won that under 21, the goal to get to the senior semi-final, beat Bagnasstown in Kildavin, 6 points to 5. I remember being in the Foundry that night after the match, and with a couple of the boys, and there's a great story about Pat Finlan and Padraig Ho and Michael in the toilet. Pat Finlan and St. Mullins and Padraig Ho, the boys would be brother-in-laws, and one of our lads was in the cubicle anyway and doing a number 2, and Pat Finlan came in anyway, and Padraig Ho was there, I think, and somebody said we had to match, and no, I weren't that, but Rangers won. And what was the score? 6-5. And I think one of the others said, what did the other team score? But that was the score, 6 points to 5. So we went into the semi-final then against Michael, and I suppose the way of expectation was gone, because the goal was to get to the semi-final. That for that year was progress. First senior semi-final, I think, in 8 or 9 years. Only the second one in the history of Mount Leinster Rangers, and after winning the under 21. And we ended up beating Michael in the semi-final, and we got to the county final then, and Ballinkillen were at the other side. They knocked St. Mullins out at the same time, so there was going to be a new champion, Rangers or Ballinkillen, and unfortunately it wasn't to be for us. Best team won on the day, Ballinkillen. The Duke had one of many great games for them that time, and some great hurlers on that team too. Stephen O'Brien, as I said, the Welshes, they had a good team. They were kind of coming there to win 3 minors in a row, kind of around that time as well. And then 2002 got back to the semi-final, lost it against Michael. That was, I guess, the 2001 final was a kind of an experience for us. It was where the goal was to get to the semi-final. I think, I won't say we disrespected the final a bit, but it was nearly a kind of a novelty more so in the county final. And I suppose when we got betting that and we took the winter to reflect, we kind of said, it wasn't an opportunity missed because we weren't good enough on the day, but it was, maybe we didn't take that as serious as we should have. Got back in semi-final 2002, lost it. Michael beat us. That was a tough one to take. That was heartbreaking. It started to mean a lot in 2003, back to the final, beaten again. Michael, semi-final 4, beating Nave Breed. They beat us on that day. Johnny Kavanagh had a great game that day. 2005, then back to the county final, lost it again. So over a 5-year period, 3 finals, 2 semi-finals. But stuck together. Where a lot of supporters was probably losing faith in us at that stage, because the great Ballymurphy team in the 80s, they lost 3 out of 4 finals. They lost 4 finals, in 5 years, 80, 81. They weren't in 82, and they lost 83 and 84. So I suppose it was a kind of deja vu that this team just hadn't the bottle to win one, and it was just the thing down around this part that we hadn't the bottle to get over that finish line. And then in 6, by the God's will, we got over the line and won the county final. A great resolve for that group of players to keep coming back. And once we kicked down that door in 6, the whole thing took off,
What was the turning point, do you think, in 2006? Because you'd obviously lost all those finals. Where did the change of mindset come in?
I just think that, as I suppose, when you're born into GA, it's great. When you're born into a winning kind of mentality in a club, it's even better. We were a kind of where we had great people leading the club, and that kind of the club had never won nothing. So the resolve probably wasn't there. It wasn't there. And the maturity definitely wasn't there from us as a group. I think that we had a group, they stuck together. There was probably a group of 6 to 8 core that probably from around 96 to a kind of 2014 that were there for that period, 18 years. But I think just with every year we hurt more and more and more. And in 2006, like 6, we were 5 points down in that 6 final, which I would say 11 minutes to go. Sean Michael got a free 21-yard free, Dublin end of the county grounds, and I remember it like it was 2 seconds ago, and he was going for a goal. 5 points down in the county final, he was going for the onion bag. Sean Michael would be a deadly striker of a dead ball and completely miss it. And I remember it rolling up at the side of the goal. And I remember that time, if you remember, the signs that be behind the goal, and I can still hear the echo of the ball just hitting off the sign. I remember saying to myself, God, not again. And St. Mullins poked out that ball, and we hit 9 points in 11 minutes to go from 5 down to 4 up in that county final. And St. Mullins got a point in after that, and we won by 3 points. And it was just, I think it was an accumulation of just too much hurt. And were we going to be always the whipping boys, and were we going to have that tag like our forefathers had of just not being able to get over the line? And don't get me wrong, they were great people. Like you look at that, like Frank's father was on it, Tom, like he was an outstanding fullback, Tom Foley. My father was on it, the Burns, the Big Birds. Father was on it, Eddie, a great hurler as well. Dennis and Jack Murphy's father, Michael, like, and them boys, I suppose, stuck kind of with us with the Rangers, and they're still there to this day, and they have enjoyed great success on the back of us. And it's with us winning, it's the very same as them winning. It's like their losses have now been put to bed as well. But I think that I think it's maturity is a great thing. It's like, and I suppose it's like now, as we are at this part of our life, you'd love to go back and say to yourself, God, if we had been just a little bit more mature and took it a little bit more serious. I'm not saying we didn't take it serious, but when you go in and hurl with a county team that time, or kick football with a county team, you go in quietly and you'd leave the bag down in the corner, and because nearly, who are these guys? That sort of way, because you had big characters there, big clubs, say Mullins and Michael dominate, and Carlow would win every now and again, and you just go in there and you'd lay down your bag and you go play, and if them boys said something to you, a train or anything, you do it, and I suppose it was getting that maturity to stand on our own 2 feet and be our own men, and I think that came big time in 2006 and the following years,
Yeah, of course, 2007, you make it back-to-back. You beat St. Mullins again. Shawn Michael with the hand of God. And then a bit of a setback in 2008, of course, when Nave Breed scored with that last-minute goal. And I actually looked at that recently, I think there was like 22 seconds or something later, the ball's poked out and it's game over and it's heartbreak.
Yeah,
That obviously took its toll on you, personally and as a team.
did you? That was at the time. That was shattering stuff for us, and I suppose in the winter of '06, we had a meeting and we were really developing into a kind of strong characters. We had a players meeting, and management had never been discussed at a players meeting. We had it for ourselves, right? We're county champions. We were after losing the bank holiday weekend, the Halloween bank holiday weekend. We went up to Quaeve Kieran and got beaten in it. But again, that was kind of like bonus territory. Now, we didn't think we were going to win Leinster or anything, but that was a novelty. You're representing Carlow a day out and a few beers afterwards. But we had a meeting kind of that winter, and players meeting, and where do we go from here now, lads? Is that going to be it? We've got one. No one else in the parish has one. Do we take that one and park it and shake hands here now and go, or do we give this a right lash now and come back and see what we can achieve? And we came back in 7 and won it. Had the meeting again in 8 now, or the end of 7, and now the target was to go for 3 in a row. And the 3 in a row, to be fair, wasn't mentioned. It was very, very rarely it was mentioned, maybe on a supporters level. But in 8, I suppose we were raging hot favourites, I'd say, going into it. Nave Breed were always tricky though. Nave Breed were a tricky team. When they got it together, they could get it together. They always had that thing, they could get it together, and if they got it together, they were going to take beating. But they had great players, Johnny Nevin, Johnny Kavanagh, these lads, Martin Keaton, the Brennans, all these lads, through the years. But I suppose for me personally, the ball went out for a 65, and it was X amount of minutes into injury time, and I remember Brendan Lawler took the 65. He was dropping into the square, and I remember I said to Frank, "Leave this to me. I want to go for this." And so the ball came in anyway, and I went up for it, batted it out to the side. It deflected off me, hurled there where you come out in the tunnel. I can still see it, and someone went out, picked up the ball, and Tomas Murphy was cornerback, and I was kind of moving out, and I was kind of right on the end line, and whoever it was went to strike the ball for Nave Breed across the square, and it hit off me off the jaw, and it hit off me right hand side of my jaw, but it went back out for a 65 on my left hand side. I can never imagine how that happened, but and then the second 65 was being taken, and everybody was just waiting for the whistle. Where's this whistle? And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to get this ball, and the 65 was taken, and I can still see it, like it's standing there now in front of me, and the ball is coming to me straight down on top of my head, and it's like it's in the air forever, and it's like this is my ball all day, and I'm just about to go for it, and Edward's in front of me, and Edward shouts, "Leave it!" And like it's a regret I do have. I stopped for that split second, and the next thing somebody comes, the next thing Edward's gone. It all happened, and I swear to you, I just cannot remember. All I can remember is just Edward leave it. The next thing I just relaxed for a split, not even a second. The next thing Edward's gone, somebody's after giving him a shot. There's no sign of the ball, and the next thing I hear this roar, and I just turn, and I can still see the net shaking. Ball is poked out, game over. But I suppose moving on from that winter, I would look back at that now and say that defeat met us, because we had a meeting that winter and we made a promise to ourselves that we'd never lose a tight game again. And if you look at the following years, like we won an All-Ireland semi-final be a point, we won a Leinster final be a couple of points, we won county finals be a point or 2 points. But in tight games, I remember the following year we played Bagnallstown in 9, and it was Bagnallstown where we were 3 points up or whatever, and huge crowd came from the town, and the town had kind of had come out of nowhere. They had been beaten, I think, maybe the year before in the semi-final or something, and huge crowd from the town that day. But 3 points, and I remember talking to people afterwards. I never felt on the field that day we were going to be beaten, but I remember the supporters saying afterwards, "God, you're trying to kill us." We thought it was going to be the same as last year, but we had a more sense of calmness on the field because we had learned, and I guess it's like from 1 to 5, learning to get over the line in 6, from 8, learning of what can happen, just be that little bit more mature. If the ball is there, it is your ball, no matter who calls for it. If you think you can get it, it's your ball. I believe that had a huge bearing on us, on our career, that Naomh Bríd victory or that Naomh Bríd loss, because it gave us the tougher mentality. This can't happen. You have to close out games. And again, I don't look back at that with regret that Naomh Bríd beat us. Again, the best team won on the day. You play till the final whistle, and you learn that too as you get older. If you're not good enough to win it in 60 minutes, you're not good enough. The other team were better than you. And Naomh Bríd won it, and fair play to them. And where we pushed on, they kind of fell apart. But however, then 10 came in, and 10, Dennis was gone with crucial.
Just quickly, if I can interrupt on 09, because you said you learned lessons. However, Owen Summers was very close to getting a goal at the end. What's your memories of that?
I think that was probably a bit. I think people think that maybe was a bit closer than it was. I never felt from the start of that whistle to the last whistle that we were in any danger. I felt that we probably on the day we weren't clinical enough. Bagenalstown, no disrespect to them now, Bagenalstown pushed us to the pin of our collar, but it's a county final, and that's what you expect. Like the day you go out to win a county final and you win it by 20 points, that's kind of a lucky day. You see Kilkenny doing it to Watford in 8 and that, but then you look before that, Kilkenny won 5 or went for 5 All-Ireland finals there in that, and they had a freak one in 8 where everything went right for them on the day, and Watford kind of didn't show up. They're freak ones. Other than that, no matter who you're playing, you're pushed to the pin of your collar, and that Bagenalstown team would again, with the calibre of players they have, and we live in a small county too, so everybody knows each other, and you're never going to get anything soft like the Minchins, Rona Minchin, Owen Minchin, them lads, Jacko, Styler. Like these boys had quality hurlers, but at the same time, I felt we were mature enough that day to get over the line, and that's the way it transpired. Now, we ended up on the back of that victory, getting to our first Leinster final against Freshford and losing a big goal. And again, and I think I said this to you before, when Freshford bet us and that, they went down to Limerick and bet St. Liberties in the semi-final be a point and hammer Galls in the All-Ireland final. If we had went to Limerick, I don't think we would have bet Liberties, because again, it was a stepping stone, and I suppose that kind of opened up our eyes, losing the Freshford with 3 points, that we weren't actually that far away now from another big step, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so then obviously another setback kind of with St. Mullins in 2010. They won that one. You came back then and won 2011 after 2 outrageously tough games against Michael. I know there was rows, I think, possibly the second one to start. Your memories of that day, I suppose, on the field and off the field?
Don't have any memories of the rows. Was there a row? Was there?
You're very selective with your memory.
No. Yeah, look, there was. I suppose we were a kind of. I suppose we were trying to push on, and look, Michael hadn't won a final since 5, and now they're back against us in 11, and they were after, I suppose, unlike Michael, going into the wilderness a little for a few years, and yeah, they came back again us in 11, and I suppose, and we growing up along, I suppose the monkey on our back was kind of Michael, and they were the standard bearers in Carlow. Like there's, when you get older, you kind of, as I said to you, when you mature more, you kind of realise as a club what they have achieved, and their consistency over the years, and winning a double in 86 and all that, or 88, whichever one it was. But like a fierce, proud club with fierce, proud tradition. And I suppose we had never stepped out of their shadows. We had played them in a couple of county finals. They had beaten us in a couple of county finals. We couldn't just seem to get over them in a final. They had beaten us in that under 21 in 2000. Yes, we beat them in a minor in 96. They came back and beat us in 97. So I suppose they were a kind of an elephant in the dressing room, that this was this was the one. And probably we lost the first day where we were trying to be very controlled, and Michel are a physical team, they're well able to play hurling, but they're well able to play a stylish brand of hurling, but they'll throw you around the place if you let them throw you around the place. And that's no disrespect definitely to Michel, but you have to be at the full of your head playing them boys. And I guess the first day we were bullied a bit and we allowed that to happen. And I guess the second day we were lucky enough to get the draw. And the second day, I suppose that week, that 7-day turnaround, we kind of had said that we won't be bullied the next day. And I guess that there was a couple of handbags before the match, and it led to handbags all over the field. But I still think that, it ended up to being a cracking final, and we were lucky enough to get out of it. And I guess when we got over that one, and that was the monkey finally off the back. Now you had beaten Michel in a county final, you had beaten St. Mullins, you had beaten Bagnestown. Do you know what I mean? It's not just that you've beaten one team. Now, they're being coming at us, and we're finally able to get over these teams. That was a kind of the start of a golden era over the next 3 years, where we went on to do kind of great stuff.
So that was the starting block for a trip to Croke Park, that win over Michel in the county final.
Yeah.
You went on, you won Leinster and got the Croker.
Yeah, and great memories, and it was got a fantastic time, fantastic period, and but as I said, you looked around that dressing room that time, and there was leaders everywhere, and as somebody remarked to me one day, when you went in and dropped your bag in the dressing room, you looked to your left, you looked to your right, or you looked straight across the room. You had men that go to the welfare, and it was the same for other clubs in Carlow through the years. That Michel team that we've been talking about there, the 80s and the early 90s, that won 6 in a row. St. Mullins had great teams like that. I remember the early part of the 90s. And we just wanted to be one of them teams. And finally we had them men in the dressing room, and we went on, and we went into Nolan Park, and we bet a Danes 4 team. Richie Hogan and Paul Murphy were all stars, and to go into their backyard. We always loved playing in Nolan Park. We were after playing eight times. I think we had played 8 times in Nolan Park. We had never been beaten in it, and we bet Freshford, or we bet Danes Fort. We loved playing there, and went into a Leinster final. Then went to Selbridge, up to Newbridge, and we were playing Selbridge, and tough game, and lucky enough to come out with that. And then we went to Parnell Park for the All-Ireland semi-final to play Robert Hemmets, and got over there by a pint. Great game. Remember Derek Byrne scored a super score from the sideline, over on the far sideline from the middle of the field. It was like he just flicked it with his wrists. I remember it was a big moment in the game with about 10 minutes to play, and we kind of pushed on from there. And then we went up to the All-Ireland final, and sure, that was an unbelievable experience, a great night.
A big turning point as well in the second half. Wing forward, of course, for the Armagh boys was causing havoc, and it was one of the few times Edward Cody was probably under a bit of pressure. You switched across onto him and got joy.
Yeah, and it was probably we all know Edward and Edward's calibre, and I just that night a lot of the play was going down the far side. I was kind of where I was in the first half. There was nothing happening at all. Everything was 100 miles an hour over the far side of the field, and it was probably because I'd say, and it's amazing how sometimes you can sum things up. The All-Ireland junior final had been on before it. Ballyragget and a team from Cork, down around Charneville, I think, and we were playing afterwards. But in the first half, Edward was on the Hogan stand side and we were on the far side, but that's where all the crowd was. And it's just, the play can get attracted to that side a lot from puckouts or whatnot, and everything seemed to be, all the players seemed to be coming down on that side, and it was 100 mile an hour stuff, and there was nothing going on over our side. And I think just after 20 or 25 minutes, they just switched maybe to give Edward a breather or whatnot, and kind of the ball started bouncing for me, and it, look, the thing went well for me that night. It went well for a lot of lads that night, and we went a man down before half time. We were at half time. I'm sure if you were a betting man, you wouldn't be backing us. But again, that resolve that was built up over the years, and those stepping stones and those victories against great teams stood to us, and the character was tested, and I think that turned out to be a massive win as well.
And of course, the following year, you won the championship against Bandystown, and then you beat St. Mullins in 2013 and end up in a Leinster final against Alert which you win.
Yeah, that was massive, and I suppose we took great inspiration from the heroic teams, and we spoke about that, and we spoke about the Blues team, that went to Port and won the Leinster Club football final. Another great team through the history of Carlow, that Blues team. But I suppose, the night before there was a bad car accident, and Richard Kelly was in a bad car accident with Conor Hayes, and I suppose it happened the Saturday night before the Leinster final, and there was a lid being kept on it by management, and we only found out the next morning. And I remember I was lying in the bed the next morning, and the missus was letting me have a lie in, and I remember Christy Keeley rang me, and he says to me, "Where are you?" And I says, "I'm in the bed." He says, "This is the biggest game of our career." He says, "And you're in the bed." He says, "I'm after ringing Edward. He's in the bed." He said, "I hope everyone is as relaxed as he boys today." And I think the game was in Nolan Park. We were going in as massive underdogs. No one was giving us a prayer. Oulard had been beaten in 3 or 4 previous to it. It was in our favourite venue of the whole lot, Nolan Park. And as I say, we went in, and the rest is history. It's confined to the history books now. It ended up being one of the great days in Carlow sports,
When you collapsed onto your knees and kind of gesturing to the man above, was it to the man above, or was there someone in particular you were kind of praying to?
No, that was the man above you. That was it all coming out there. It was, for a team to come after you or anything, what we had achieved now was just like, you were confined to the history books now, and no one could ever take that away from you. And it meant an awful lot from the journey where we had started to where we were now, from taking those 30 points beatings to being the kings of Leinster. And I guess that I often tell the boys this story. In 2004, I was in around 2004, I was in Graignamanagh on St. Patrick's Day, and there's a Ballymurphy man, he owns a pub in Graignamanagh, Mick Doyle, and I was in the pub, and Borough were playing Dunley in an All-Ireland Club final, and Pat Doyle owned the pub anyway, and Pat shouts out to me, "Well, Hick, will Rangers ever get to an All-Ireland final, or will a Carlow team?" And there was 4 old men, and they were sitting at the far end of the bar, and I remember them laughing quite loud and saying, "Carlow this and Carlow that, and are you cracked and all this?" And 10 years later, we were there, and I thought about that on the bus. It came into my head on the way up. I'll never forget it. It came into my head on the way up to the match on the bus. It's amazing the way things come back to you,
Yeah, it's unreal, really. And you think about it, like in the space of a decade, there you are, you end up in Croke Park, big win over Loughlin in the semi-final up in Newry, and then you take on Port Humna on the biggest stage of them all on Paddy's Day.
Yeah, and it was obviously, it was great times, great memories. You look back on them now, and you do honestly say to yourself, "Yeah, we were blessed," and we were blessed, and there's no point in saying any different. Yeah, we worked hard and all that, but we made our own luck a lot of the time. The gods smiled on us, and to be up there on All Ireland final day on Patrick's Day against one of the greatest club teams of all time, and I think we gave a good account of ourselves. Conceded no goal, and I think if you go back over the history of club finals between that and now, I think all the other finals, I think we lost by 8 points or something, 19-11 or something. But I think that previous to that and after that, there was a lot of hammerings in the All Ireland club finals. And I remember at half time we were well in it, and 5 minutes gone in the second half, we were well in it, and they just knuckle down, and their bit probably experience, and it's like that experience that that we learned in Carlow and other places, we hadn't that experience, and they put it to the fore, and again the best team won on the day, and there was no doubt about that, you know.
Heartbreak for you personally, of course. You done your cruise in the lead up to the final and ended up missing it.
Yeah, look, done my cruise ship 2.5 weeks before it, and you know, and I was getting punished there for something I had done down the road. I always say that look, if you do something, you know, you'll have something that'll happen you good, and it'll mean maybe that you'll have to miss something else, and that's the way I looked at it. And all I can say is to that, we had a great squad and we had a great panel, and you know, at that stage it was heartbreaking to not play or not be involved in it, but at the same time to sit there on the bench and look out at the lads you grew up with, and it's like I said about the 30-point hammerings, and now look at them, these are your friends, these are the boys that you die for, and you know, you go to war for these boys, will go to war for you every time, and you go to war for them. And it was just, you know, the honour of even being there and just with the boys was enough for me, you know.
Just on the county front before we kind of switch our attention to county football and club football, some great days in the Carlow jersey. Chris Ring medals in 08 and 09. Victory over Wexford in the league. Can you recount some of those highlights and maybe share your thoughts on it now, having the opportunity to look back?
Yeah, went in with the county first in '98. Brendan Fennelly brought me in, God rest him. And I was mad that Brendan brought me in that time. Myself and the Duke went in, but kind of late in the year, and the Duke and myself were on the minor team, and we got brought in just to make up numbers. That's really what it was, for training matches and that. And it was a great experience. Some great players there that time, Martin Farrell, Ballinkillen, you know. Just a huge honour to be around them lads, with the wealth of experience they had, and instead kind of with the hurlers right through, missed a couple of years in between with Owen Garvey, came back then Jim Green, and missed 6 and 7, 98 to 2005, and then missed 6 and 7, and went back in then in 8 with Jim Green, and you know, it was kind of a new emphasis, mad stuff altogether. Mount St. man coming in, he brought a lad in with him, John McGrath, absolutely nutcase, kind of world's strongest man kind of stuff, putting putting 6-inch nails through blocks before matches and tearing up phone books and bending horseshoes, and Jim then unfortunately only got the 1 year. We had won the Christy Ring, and there was a disagreement there or whatnot, new rules that came in and you had to stick by the rules, and there was a disagreement at a higher level, and then Kevin came in, mad, another club man at Jim's, just, you know, the way it worked out. And I think Kevin was the game changer for a few years. I think Kevin brought Philly Flynn with him. He brought Jerry Fitz with him. Jerry had been over the Irish basketball team. Kevin had been a selector under Justin McCarthy with that great Waterford team of 2002, 3, 4. They had won Munster finals. Jerry was with him as well, and they took the thing to a whole new level. We won the Christy Ring then again in 9. Then we went up in 10, and it's mad the way you look back on it. In 10, when we did, we beat Wexford in the National Hurling League in Carlow. Great, massive day. And the following Sunday, we played Clare in the National Hurling League, and Clare beat us by a point. Like, and I often refer to it like the sparrow was over him. And between 10 and 13, Clare went on to win the All-Ireland in 13 in 3 years, you know. And that time under Kevin Ryan, like, he was bringing us down to play Waterford. That was our first real feel for this kind of step, to be playing the likes of Waterford. Like, Waterford were a big name, and we had cracking games with them. I remember going down to Waterford one Friday evening to play Waterford, and they had all the big boys playing, and it was like something like maybe 317 to 23 or 4 points, which wouldn't be bad, you know. Like, there was only a few points in it. I remember Owen Kelly. I remember Frank pulled off a super save off a penalty from Owen Kelly, and making super saves, Frank did, and it was kind of, you know, you'd be going home in the car and you're saying, geez, you never thought you'd see this day when Waterford would be playing you in a challenge match and they'd actually play you, you know. And Then we were going out to Limerick, and we bet Limerick below in a challenge match in Limerick. And the thing was between 2008 and 10-11. The thing was going really well, and then there was a couple of setbacks. And then look, a younger, newer group came in, and they pushed on that mantle again.
Just reverting back to 06 and 07, Owen Garvey was overseeing that time. Did you not want to hurl for Garvey, or did Garvey not want you?
I know it was nothing like that. It was what it was I had a pine idle sinus on my back, and no one rang me to go in at the start, and I went in, or I didn't go in because I was having this operation on my back. So coming up in the build up to Christmas, so after Christmas I had said to Owen I go back in, and then I went and played a soccer match, and Owen rang me and said to me, "Look, you're playing soccer and you won't come in with us." And we kind of had a bit of a disagreement on that, and I felt that I might be better off away at that stage, and so I just didn't go in over Owen or under Owen in 6 and 7 then. But Owen again, I nothing personal from either of us. It was just a decision that was made, and Owen was good for Carlow hurling at that time, and from where it was between 2000 and 2004, from when Owen came in, then he definitely gave it a lift. There's no doubt about that. And Owen, I think will be looked back on as one of the creators or the starters of this journey, where he took it to a level, and then Jim came in and got us over the line, and then Kevin came in and built on that and kept building.
So one of those big wins, we mentioned Wexford in the league, but beating Laois, I should say, in the championship, massive day. Laois really came strong, despite the fact that G seemed to dominate for the most part. And Dennis Murphy scored a point off his knees, which wasn't shown on the RT highlights, which still amuses me.
Yeah, Dennis scored a point, yeah. And look, Dennis, for me, was one of, if not the best hurler that I've ever played with. He was a young man coming onto the scene, and I think that day he hit one something, and he wasn't taking the freeze. He was hitting them from play, and he could score that point off the freeze. He got a yellow card that day. It was his first and maybe only yellow card. And I sent him the picture there a couple of years ago. It's on Sports File or whatever. I'm getting the yellow card, and he sent me back the hands over the face, and and Dennis for me was special that way. And it's like you say, it wasn't on it. Like people forget that. I suppose Dennis is a lad that I'd often looked at for inspiration, even though there'd probably be 9 years between us. He done his cruciate 3 times. He came back from his cruciate every time stronger. Over his career now, and he's only 30 now, touching 30. He's played more maybe than lots of players will ever play at any level, because he played minor county football. He played in the Leinster minor county football final, Leinster minor hurling final. He always thrown his way in with the county, and he ended up having a remarkable career both with club and county, and he should be, and I think rightly so, remembered as one of the greats in Carlow hurling,
Absolutely. Playing under 21 finals when he was 14 or 15, and he's a year older than me, actually. So all I remember is him tormenting us and hurling and football the whole way up along. Him and Paddy Keogh were just outrageous. That's my memories of underage hurling in particular. But I'm going to venture across the county football, because you played under Pat Rowe, I think, in around 2001.
Yeah.
When Carlow played Kildare in Croke Park, and then you came back with John Kearns in 07.
Yeah. I knocked around with Pat and Muxer Condon, and there was, I think, Andy was we got a short stint there for a while from Laois. It was kind of a quick inter-county match from Mount Carlow, yeah. But I played under Pat Rowe, and I suppose Pat for me would be one of the best trainers at that time. Pat Rowe, when I trained under him first, I remember I've often said it, and he was the best trainer I've ever trained under. When I met Pat first, he was brilliant. Now Tommy came on the scene after it, and Tommy was obviously to us a god, Tommy Mullally, but Pat Rowe was definitely special. He was a great man, had a great affection towards players. Was probably the first manager I met at that time that had that affection towards players, which progressed later and is really to the forefront now, that you can't go in and deliver a message now to players and expect them all to wash on them all. It's nearly you have to treat the individual more so now in the dressing room, and you kind of have to have that work done prior to the match. And Pat kind of brought that emphasis. And Pat won the Burn Cup, and we played in the Leinster Championship, played Wicklow, and Super Wicklow team. Harry Murphy was over him. He's still with Rathnew now, and you know, they had fabulous footballers. They had the Burns from Shillelagh, Don Jackman in the middle of the field. And we went up to Newbridge to play them, and drew with him and beat him in the replay, and then play Kildare in the Leinster semi-final. And I think Kildare were Leinster champions. I remember Willie Quinlan giving an exhibition, and great players in that team: Mark Carpenter, Johnny Nevin, Alan Bowe. Like the Blues were strong that time. They were winning 3 in a row in Carlow. But great players I've always considered it an honour. I think what I learned with football was in those earlier years, the football was definitely number one in Carlow. That the football was, they did get treated better, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way towards the county board, but it was just that the footballers were always perceived as number one, and to go in there and throw your lot in with the likes of Sean Kavanagh, Rathvilly, and these lads, like these were. I remember going in the first time and seeing Sean Kavanagh and talking out beside him, like, and you'd be in awe of this man, you know, and 6'6", giant of a man, brilliant footballer, brilliant club footballer with Rathvilly, you know, and John Hickey of Finna, Val Fleming, Stephen O'Brien. Finna were good that time. They got to a county football final. You know, fabulous footballers. Brian Farrell, Skioch, Mark Carpenter, as I said, like, that was a fabulous crew that time. And then went, as I said, was playing hurling and gave it a miss for a couple of years, and then went back in under Muxer and Andy, and then John Kearns, and played against Offaly in the Leinster Championship in 7, and got beaten in that in the back door then, and I think Waterford put us out of the championship that time. But the first love was always hurling, you know.
Which brings me to the point about Rangers in football. I mean, you've got to several semi-finals at senior level and seem capable of winning the senior championship. And you rightly said there that number one is hurling down in Rangers. There is a couple of guys that are football first in Rangers. They're few and far between. I'm sure they're feeling very frustrated because obviously you are capable of winning one.
Yeah, and I won't disagree with what you said, and I believe that probably the timing was right for us. If ever a time was right for us and set up for us properly, was 2008, because when we beat us in that county final, the following week we were playing the senior football semi-final, and I believe that if we had beaten Nave Breed, now you can maybe take inspiration from that Michael team of the 80s that won the double, and now there's a golden opportunity here. We're playing Aerogue. If we get over Aerogue, we have a real chance of winning this county final. But when that ball went into the back of that net, there was no one wanted to play football the following Sunday, and we all went and we all played, but you were sick to the pit of your stomach after losing that county final. If you get where I'm coming from, it was when that final whistle went and Nave Breed had won, Aerogue had also won the semi-final. I'm not saying even in let us win it, we would have beaten Aerogue, but we definitely would have been a damn lot closer than we were had that ball not hit the back of the net.
I don't think you were bet by too much by your out that day, were you? As it turned out.
No, I think 4 or 5 points. But look, we always we no disrespect, we love the football down here. We love it, but there does come a stage where you nearly, that time you have to remember, like there was Bagnallstown were a senior hurling team, Breed were a senior hurling team, Carlow were a senior hurling team. There was 6 or 7 senior hurling teams, so you had to play. It wasn't like now 4 teams or 5 teams now with Bagnallstown, but the last couple of years 4 teams, and you could say to yourself, maybe we should take the football serious for a bit here. And plus, I suppose the big thing now is where the club is really suffering is that you have 12 in with the county senior team. You have 10 or 12 in with the county under 21 team. That's 24. How do you train? Do you know what I mean? Because the core group is in with the county teams throwing their lot in. And I've often felt for the last few years, maybe, and definitely not using this as an excuse, because for the last few years, a real good St. Mullins team has come to have won 3 in a row, and rightly so, and deserve to win it. There's no doubt in that. But I feel that just the way it's been going the last few years, that just to have 12 in is unsustainable, that the club really suffers, because you take that Ring team and that Joe McDonough team and them, there was 7, 8, 9 starters, so they were constantly going. Now, to be fair, this year it can't be used as an excuse because a lot of the lads aren't playing this year. The way it transpired, and Dennis stepped away from it, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the next while.
Before I go on to the curveball of the series, which is, of course, to pick your best 15, and because you're a dual player, we asked you to pick a football and a hurling, which you have to include yourself on, which lads are going mad over, but hey, my series, my rules. But before I go on to that, just a quick one on management, because it seemed that it was going to be the obvious transition for you. You're so passionate about the game. And a couple of years back, you were over Carlow and got to 2 county finals.
Yeah, and look, I enjoy it. I suppose when you do retire, and it'll come to us all, and I suppose when you're that deeply engrossed in it, like the Franks and the Edwards and the Garys and all these guys, and many other sportsmen around the county, will know what I mean from this. When you come and it comes that day to hang up the boots, like, it's a sad day, and you do actually feel a sense of loss. It is like somebody dying, and it's like you're on the outside now, you're not on the inside anymore, and you're not part of it. And I felt, for me anyway, that I had reached the stage where I wasn't good enough anymore. The legs were starting to dwindle. I had or I had done the cruciate, went back, had played a bit of intermediate because I hadn't played the 14 season because I was rehabbing from my cruciate, won the intermediate, and played Michael in the senior hurling semi-final the same day, and Kevin McDonald scored 4 goals and didn't play, and a row broke out, and I ended up getting suspended for going onto the field and pushing Rangers lads down the field. I was a sub, and the next thing I was hit with the suspension for breaking the white line, had interfered with no opposing player, had video evidence to prove it, and no trying to book at me. And I suppose it's a disappointing note for me to think that, the last probably run out in Dr. Cullen Park, I knew that year was it for me, and I probably would have got game time in the final the way it transpired, because St. Mullins beat us, and rightly so. And Gary Kelly ended up getting suspended. Willie ended up getting suspended. Paul Cody ended up getting suspended. Willie, Paul, and me for breaking a white line, a pitch incursion, and thought it was very harsh. Didn't look for any special favours. Had done nothing wrong. Had the video evidence to prove it, but still trying to book at me, and hurt very much, and still hurts, and very disappointing way to end. But that was the end for me. Then it hurts when I think about it. But look, let bygones be bygones. It's done and dusted now for me. I've moved on, and it's just a disappointing note whenever it's reflected upon.
Did that draw passion going into a coaching career, Pat, then?
Yeah, I felt that, if I wasn't going to be around, I needed to do something to keep me busy. We had young kids at home, and the wife and myself, I got approached from a few clubs, and obviously we sat down and we spoke about it, and we felt Carlow was the right fit because it was hurling and football, and they're 3 years now, got to 2 county finals in the first year, 2 semi-finals last year, really enjoying it. Great group of players. Remind me of a kind of ourselves from that 2000 2005 period. I feel that if they do kick down the door once, they'll be a force to be reckoned with for a number of years, because they're getting a good group of young lads coming there the last couple of years, and they take on board everything you say, and they listen, and they want to learn, and really, really happy down there.
So, right, let's go to these teams. We'll start with hurling first. Goalkeeper.
Oh, God. And it's your choice that can I not leave myself out, no?
No, not happening.
Frank Foley, anyway, obvious goalkeeper. Best goalie I ever played with. If he was in any other county, he probably would have won an all-star. Top-notch, free take, and anything, you name it, he's done it. Definitely lucky throughout my career to have him behind me in the number 1 jersey.
Full back line?
Duke cornerback, one of the greats. Went to school with him, played minor with him, under 21 with him. Gentleman, on and off the field. the Duke without a doubt. Fullback Tom Doyle. It's obviously the county team. It's longevity. You did state that to me, that it's a county team. So I suppose for the long stint I was there, Tom was there, excellent fullback. I suppose from a club point of view, Gary Doyle fullback, probably the best fullback I've played with. Only Gary probably never gave his lot in with the county, but Tom Doyle definitely, while I was in there, was number one for me. Yeah, I went for Willie in the corner. First early years, Captain Rangers to win the championship as a forward, but definitely Kevin Ryan put him back corner back, one of Christy Arena corner back. Look, Willie was a special player. He was the one in our house born with a bit of skill, so he definitely for me would be on any team,
So half-back line.
Johnny the Rock, Johnny Nevin, both hurling and football. Johnny was unbelievable person, absolutely outstanding in both codes. Johnny would have to be wing back. Shane Kavanagh at centre back, another great hurler. Throughout the years had many battles with Shane. But when you get, as I said earlier, when you get to a certain stage of your career, you look back on it and you say to yourself about players you played with, and he was definitely a great hurler, great centre back.
Just on Johnny Nevin, right? So he's known as legend down our way, and you're known as legend down there. Did you inherit that from him, or who's the real legend?
Johnny Nevin's the real legend, make no bones about that. And he's training our footballers now, so there's great respect there. Johnny is a lovely fella, and Johnny is number one. Johnny's the legend, boy.
Left half-back?
Eddie Cody, sure. Eddie, look, most cap player in Carlow's history, speaks for itself,
Middle of the field?
Declan Kavanagh, Sam Mullins, again, one of the best I've played with. Tough cookie, just leader and great hurler, and he would deserve his place on any Carlow team,
I take it you slotted yourself in beside him?
Yeah, if I have to slot myself in beside him, I have no problem now slotting somebody else in beside him, definitely not.
Yeah, that's where the tricky part is in curveball central and all that. Half-forward line?
Robbie Foley at wing forward. God could turn a game in a second. The great goal in that Christy Ring final in 9, but Robbie was a brilliant hurler and definitely he'd have to be there at 10. Pat Cody at 11. Remember the first match? Vaguely remember my father bringing me to Banglastown, Pat playing with Carlow in the under 21 match in Kilkenny, and oh my God, that day he gave some exhibition. I remember Sean Sprum was on that team, Killeen Griffith, to push Kilkenny to the pin of their collar. I think Pat Cody could have scored 14, 15 points, and I remember coming home wanting to be Pat Cody, but Pat Cody, gave us our fair share of punishment throughout the years, but Pat Cody was brilliant hurler.
And completing the half-forward line?
I have kind of Damien Roberts, John Cody. Can I say Damien Cody,
It'd be an interesting hybrid, all right.
Yeah, look, the two boys, look, it's chalk and cheese. Like, if I'd have no problem slotting Damien in and there at number 9 beside Declan Kavanagh. He was a great player. Again, many battles with him through the years, but he was a great hurler. And if I was picking John, it'd be the same for that position. Man of the match in 2 county finals for us. Great club hurler as well. It'd be either or.
Who you're going for though? I have to push you.
I'll be biased. I'll stick with my own.
Yeah, if not, you could be getting 2 black eyes. Full forward line?
Dennis Murphy. Dennis, for me, as I said to you earlier, Dennis is just phenomenal. Dennis will be on all my teams any day. No one would ever take him off him. He's at 13. Big Des is at 14. Big Des' career speaks for itself too. Hurler of the year twice. Led Michael to county titles. Just an animal of a man and a gentleman off the field. One of the real nice guys, Carlow hurling off the field, that you could have a genuine chat with, and on the field would take your life if you tried to stand in his way from his end target or rattling the onion bag. But however, Des will get 14. And I suppose 15 then, like Brendan Lawler, Mark Brennan, Paddy Kehoe, I suppose for me, I'd slot Paddy in there because Paddy, when he came on the scene, he burst onto the scene there as corner forward. And I remember in that Christy Ring's success at 9. He was probably didn't get the credit he deserved for that. He was outstanding and great player, and just again another gentleman off the field. And look, if the easy thing for you to do was to pick a 20, because I could have put in there Shaw, Jacko, Richard Cody, Brendan Lawler, and Mark Brennan, but I didn't hurl probably so much with Richard. I suppose I was coming to the end at 10. My last year hurling with county team was 10. Richard was bursting onto the scene that time at county level. Obviously, if you were picking a club team, or if I had been lucky enough to play for the last 10 years from 10 to 20, obviously Richard would be one of the first names down on it. Mark Brennan, Brendan Lawler, Jacko, who do you leave out? Johnny Nevin, Shane Cavan, Edward Cody. But I've played with so many great players and lucky to be playing with him. Desi Shaw, the same, a cornerback. Jack Kavanagh is another one. I didn't play much with Jack. If you played, Jack was kind of like Richard, the two of them with the one age. The last 10 years has been their highlight, and the two of them would be on any team from the last 10 years. But look, I was lucky enough to play with some great players, and as I say, as I look back now in your maturity, you'd say to yourself how blessed you are.
Right, so let's move on to football then. I'd imagine this gives you as many headaches.
Yeah, look, there was fabulous footballers. That starting team that I went into, it'll be heavily based on that, because they were all, every one of them were leaders. If you look at number one, James Clark would be number one on any team. Gentleman, great shot stopper. Father the same, just lovely people, and worked so hard on his game. And you'd even see that, I remember, before trains and after trains, and watching him, and he kicking out the ball, and everything had to be right, and taking a bag of balls, and his father bringing home the footballers as the kit man. And that they wouldn't be staying in the van till the next night of train. The other lad would be in the field probably kicking them out. But James Stark, brilliant player. Full back line, John Hickey of Finna. John, under Pat Rowe, blossomed, fabulous cornerback. That year he had some run, great player. Andrew Gordon, fullback, Lord of Mercy on Andrew. He was called heaven too early. If not the best fullback ever played with Carlow football. Absolutely brilliant, an attacking fullback. He'd be up around the middle of the field. He really brought that attacking emphasis to a team. And beside Andrew, I'd have Brian Farrell, Pal, another fabulous footballer. Half back line, John Hayden of O'Loughlin. Again, probably feel throughout the years, John didn't get the credit he deserves. Real tough man on the ball. No dirt, no nothing. If you wanted it hard, John would play hard. If you wanted it fair, John would play fair. Absolutely fabulous man. Gentleman off the field as well. Centre back, Stephen O'Brien of Fenna. Equally as good at hurling. Just Stephen was a good footballer. Good lad to be around in around them county teams. He always push himself to the limits. Real tough man. Great footballer. Beside him, I'd have Johnny Kavanagh. Johnny was, I suppose, wing back that time. Fast attacking wing back, could equally play in the forwards. Lovely fella, both on and off the field, but definitely would be on my team at wing back.
Right, so we moved to midfield.
Spoke about this man earlier, Sean Kavanagh. All day long, Sean, uncontested.
Beside him?
I'll go in beside him there, because if I have to be honest, I'm going beside him.
Is that just because you idolise him at the time and probably still idolise him?
Yeah. Sean Kavanagh was absolutely fabulous man, fabulous footballer.
I was thinking that, because I don't know if I remember you as a midfielder.
Yeah, well, I'm going in beside him anyway.
Whether he likes it or not.
Yeah.
Right, half forward line.
Johnny Nevin, a wing forward. Spoke about Johnny earlier on the hurling team. Johnny would be there all day long. Johnny's history precedes him, so there's probably no need to talk much about it. I put Dottie Byrne of Kildavin in at 11. Dottie probably would be more suited there beside Sean, but I'll make way. I'll put him in there at 11. Big, strong man. Played a good bit with Dottie throughout the years, through underage and that, and just great footballer. And to finish off the half hour line, then Scobie Reid, Paul Reid, felt even the team of the decade was picked there recently, the last decade, and definitely a glaring omission for me was him. Just felt he brought the PAL forwards to another level during the last 10 years. They won a back-to-back championship there, and I remember him playing Rathvilly in one of those finals, and like they tore Rathvilly to shreds. Like it was as good as football performance I've seen over the last 15 years in Carlow, and the Reeds were definitely to the forefront of that. But Scobie was just a different animal, like lightning, and was able to mix it up, and again a gentleman off the field.
I'm feeling the full forward line is going to be tasty.
The full forward line, Scock will take the 13 jersey. Great player, lovely fella, good footballer boy. Free taker, left or right, you give it to Scock. Scock will do it for you. Delighted that them boys won county medals because they deserved it, because they were kind of like us a lot. They were coming and couldn't break down that door, and then they eventually broke down the door, and Scock would definitely be on that team. Full forward in the gentleman of Carlow football, Mark Carpenter, probably, if not one of the best that I've played with, and top bloke by, always kick big scores. Often remember him kicking big scores for both the Blues and Carlow, and came out of nowhere, late developer, and then just took control of the county team there for about 10 years.
Last but not least,
Willie Quinlan. Willie would definitely have to be on that team. Was like, I look at that team and I look at Willie and the history he had, like in the Leinster medals, and you look at Mark with his Leinster medals, and I just look at that football team, and I'm just so delighted that I did get to go in and play a bit of county football, because when you look back that you share the dressing room and the jersey with them boys, the likes of them players, Johnny Nevin, Sean Kavanagh, all them lads, Brian Farrell, Stephen O'Brien, them boys, they were serious ballers, and Val Fleming, Joe Byrne, Alan Bowe, played with all them lads, absolutely. Alan Bowe, I think, for me, probably again, where he's not on my team, if you were picking a 20, I'd definitely have him in. And I remember I didn't know much about him before I went in with the county, but he'd always have a helping hand for you, always say hello to you, ask you how you were going, and meant a lot to me, and a real gentleman, and was a big player for that Blues team that won the Leinster final.
James, it's been a pleasure talking to you over the last hour and 10 minutes or so. Some great memories there that you're lucky enough to be able to recall. If a lot of people out there had half the success you did, they'd be pretty happy. But thanks for joining us. Great to go through those memories.
Yeah, look, it's been a pleasure there, and I've enjoyed it. And look, as I said to you, the first few years weren't hectic, and I'm lucky that the second part of my life was kind of took over by a bit of success anyway, and I suppose I can look back on it now with fondness. And look, I've enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best with this, Kevin.
Thank you for listening. We have another great show lined up for you next Monday. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and check us out on social media. Until next time, take care.